What is up, my Shadowverse soldiers, and welcome back to another Shadowverse Evolved video. Alright soldiers, so we are back with another set of reveals. So today we're going to be doing Swordcraft, and like I said in the last video, these Arcana cards really do make me feel like, Persona and everything, so I'm going to try my best to keep the back of this to resemble like Persona and their actual Arcanas, just so you guys can even check out the characters if you don't know what Persona is. It's just my favorite game. I know I'm talking about it and everything, but I'm really excited to really see what Swordcraft is going to look like this set. I did peek a little bit while I was making this set. There were a lot of heroic stuff, and I already do have the heroic deck, and I haven't really built another Swordcraft deck, even though I really want to look into Spartacus. I really am enjoying the new heroic package stuff that they do have in here. Alrighty, and looking at our first card, we have number 7, Oluwan, the Chariot. So he's a 3-cost 3/3. When he comes into play, you choose one of the following. You can either 1, summon a knight token, 2, give this follower +1 attack, rush, and ward. You can also 3, deal 2 damage to each enemy leader, or 4, to spend another 4 play points to bury this card. You may summon a number 7 Oluwan Runaway Chariot from your Evolved deck. Alright, so there's a lot to unpack here with this card, but this card is very generic for Swordcraft. So you're able to summon a knight token for black and white if you want to run it in that deck. You can have a 4/3 with rush and ward. You can also deal 2 damage to the enemy leader, and then on top of that, you can go into the ult phase by just spending the extra 4 play points and having a total of 7 just to go ahead and play the new Runaway Chariot. And speaking of the Runaway Chariot, so we have Oluwan Runaway Chariot. He's a 7-cost 7/7, and this follower can't attack enemies. At the start of your end phase, perform the following 2 times. You roll a 6-sided die. If you roll a 1 or a 2, destroy each enemy follower on the field. If you roll a 3 or 4, deal 7 damage to each enemy leader. And if you roll a 5 or 6, deal 7 damage to your leader. Alright, so I know it might sound crazy and I don't have a gambling addiction, but I do love to gamble when it comes to things like this, because sometimes you're really put against a wall in some matches, so you really just have to leave it up to the die, because sometimes even before the match starts, when you just choose to go for turns, like sometimes a deck that just goes first will completely blow you out. Well, a card like this will definitely help out with, the roll being a little bit better on your side, just to be able to, hey, maybe I can destroy the entire board twice, or maybe I'm able to destroy the entire board and deal 7 damage to the enemy leader. And there might be some instances where the dice did not really mess with you at all, and you rolled a 5 and a 6 on both the rolls, and you just did 14 damage to yourself. Alright, so bear with me, soldiers, when I try and pronounce these names. So we have Alyaska Warhawker, so he's a 5-cost 4/4. You can evolve him for 2, but when he comes into play, you search your deck for Ilmasuna Discord Hawker and summon it, and then shuffle your deck. Oh, you know I love it. I mean, personally, Swordcraft is really tickling my fancy this set. I don't know why. I'm a huge rune enjoyer, but Sword is just really tickling me this set, so I'm hoping it's going to be really good. So spending a total of 5 play points gets you 2 things, and that's not very bad because we always love 2-for-1 value. Alright, so looking at the Warhawker Evolve, so he turns into a 5/5, but on Evolve you search your deck for Ernesta Weapons Hawker, summon it, and then shuffle your deck. Put a Terminus Weapon token into your EX area. So not only with the unevolved side do you get a 2-for-1 deal, but if you do evolve this, you get another card onto the field, and then you put a Terminus Weapon into the EX area. Alright, so let's figure out what this Terminus Weapon does. So it's a 2-cost 6/6. It has ward, but when it comes into play, you select the enemy card on the field and destroy it. But when it dies, you deal 4 damage to each enemy leader. Alright, so it looks like this card is going to generate you so much value in 1 turn. So if you have a total of 7 play points, you're going to be able to play the Hawker, get the 1 card out, and then being able to evolve to get the other card out, which will also put this Terminus Weapon into your EX area, which is a 2-cost 6/6 with ward that also destroys a card on the field when it's played. And you can ward up if you're playing on the defensive end, but keeping it active is a very good thing too. Alright, and next up we have Prudent General, so he's a 4-cost 3/3. You can evolve him for 1, and while this card is on your field, your Swordcraft tokens have rush. But when he comes into play, you summon a Steelclad Knight token. Alright, so this is not that bad, just being able to summon a Steelclad Knight token to have rush as automatically as it's played, to go ahead and swing into something, especially if your opponent's playing lower to the ground. But I'm assuming when you evolve this card, you're going to be summoning another sort of token along with this. Alright, so looking at the general evolve, so he turns into a 4/4, and while this card is on your field, he still has the Swordcraft tokens have rush, but on evolve you summon a Steelclad Knight token, and then you give +1/+1 to each Steelclad Knight token on your field. Alright, so I was right on the ability of the fact that you're able to summon another Steelclad Knight token on the evolve, but on top of that, you get 2 Steelclad Knights that turn into 3/3s with rush. Alrighty, and next up we have Ilmasuna Discord Hawker, so it's just a 3-cost 3/3. You can activate by engaging this card. You can select the enemy follower on the field and deal it 3 damage. If there's a merchant follower on your field with a different name from this card, deal 5 damage instead. Alright, so naturally the card is just going to deal 3 damage when playing it for 3, but if you play it off of the Alsaka fanfare, which you're optimally going to want to play, you know, spending a total of 5 play points is going to get you 2 cards, and then you can engage this card and deal 5 damage to a follower. Alright, next up we have Aerial Slash, so it's a 1-cost spell. You can activate for 1 play point by banishing this card from your cemetery. You can deal 3 damage to each enemy leader. You can activate only if there are at least 5 heroic cards in your cemetery, but when you play it naturally, you select the enemy follower on the field and deal it 2 damage. Alright, so we have our first heroic card shown here. So not only do you get to push extra damage here just for 1 play point, because in those later turns it really is hard to push more damage, especially if you see a Mock Knight in your hand, either between the time where you do heroic entry and stuff like that, it does become a little awkward. But being able to spend 1 play point to deal 3 damage to the enemy leader is very nice, because I think one of the problems that the deck did have was that it didn't really be able to close games and just like push more damage than it needed to. You can create a board, don't get me wrong, you can create a board very nicely, but pushing the damage is probably the harder part of the deck. It's also nice that this card also has like a bit of an angelic snipe ability. Just to be dealing 2 damage to something is nice. Do kind of wish it were quick, but honestly being able to do this in quick timing on your opponent's turn and then the very next turn you just spend 1 to deal 3 damage to them does kind of sound broken. Alright, so next up we have Lightning Kicker. So she's a 6-cost 3/3. You can evolve her for 2 and she has Rush, but when she comes into play you discard 2 heroic cards. You search your deck for up to 2 different heroic followers that cost 3 or less, summon them, and then shuffle your deck. Alright, so I'm enjoying the fact that heroic is becoming super tribal, because there were some other archetypal cards that did not have in my heroic deck that just, you know, really didn't help out. But being able to just spend 6 to go ahead and discarding 2 heroic cards, which, you know, you're going to fill your entire deck with heroic cards, be serious. You can search up for 2 different heroic cards that are 3 or less, so you can get a Mock Knight, or you can get something else. Like, you know, there's lots of options that you can go for with all these heroic followers that you can play, but being able to storm in for some damage that very same turn is nice. Alright, and then we have the Lightning Kicker Evolve. So she turns into a 4/4, but she has Storm, but on Evolve, you select the enemy follower on field and you destroy it. Alright, so let's talk about it a little bit. So, with the heroic deck, you know you're going to be getting Valiant Fencer off of this ability, just to go ahead and at least place 1 card from your deck into your hand. That'll be really useful if you need to. But being able to have those 2 less cards that you had, you should definitely like neg at least 1 here. So you can have the right amount of cards to being able to do the Valiant Fencer evolve to go ahead and evolve this follower, so you can just on-evolve and destroy a follower if you need to. Alright, and next up we have Empress of Serenity. So she's a 3-cost 1/2. When she comes into play, you summon 2 Shield Guardian tokens, but she has another fanfare and you spend an extra 3 play points. You get +1/+2 to each follower with ward on your field. So I think this is a cute little card. If you're playing black and white and you want to be really different, being able to summon these 2 Shield Guardian tokens and then spending a total of 6 play points to give those 2 Shield Guardian tokens a very big stat line to go ahead and ward up and be a little defensive isn't that bad as well. Alright, but next up we have Nailon Raging Knight. He's a 4-cost 4/4. He has ward, and while this card is on your field, your followers with 1 attack have aura. And then when he comes into play, you choose one of the following. You can either 1, select an enemy follower on the field and deal it 3 damage, or 2, search your deck for a Fable follower that costs 2 or less, summon it, and then shuffle your deck. Alright soldiers, I like to look at everything with a positive note. The second ability, I'm praying that there's another Fable follower that costs 2 that's in this set, because I do not remember the last Fable follower that got printed for Sword. I know Cinderella was like printed for Swordcraft and everything, but that deck did not hit the ground running, and I don't even know like what the deck even does. So being able to search for a Fable follower that costs 2 for the second ability might come in handy if we might see it in, you know, later on from what we look at the rest of the cards. So hopefully it'll be really relevant. But I think Robin Hood or Red Riding Hood, I think that's the card that got printed that's from the Fable set. But having some Fable support here isn't that bad as well. Alright, but getting into the other abilities, giving your followers with 1 attack with aura is pretty nice, especially those Knight tokens you will be summoning. So here's the thing, this is a 4-cost card, and when we get into the 4 or 5 play point plays, that's when we start getting into like the board wipe eccentric. So if you do manage to keep your board and then you have the followers with aura, then if you're playing against the deck that has the board wipe, you know, do be careful with that. But if you're not going against the deck with the board wipe, then you're sitting pretty fancy. But on top of that, with the fanfare to being able to select the follower on the field and dealing it 3 damage is nice too. Alright, but enough of that card, let's talk about Honorable Thief. So he's a 2-cost 2/2. You can evolve him for 2, but when he comes into play, you put the top 2 cards of each opponent's deck into their cemetery. Then if there are at least 10 cards in opponent's cemeteries, evolve this follower. Alright, so another target for Swordflash Panther in the Octress deck. So being able to just play this card and then getting the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck into the cemetery is nice, just really helps out. And then also having those 10 cards checked there in your opponent's cemetery to evolve this follower for free is very nice as well. And then looking at the Honorable Thief evolve, so he turns into a 3/3, but when he dies, you draw a card. Alright, so one thing we do know about Swordcraft is our hand suffers as we play the game, so our hand just gets smaller and smaller as we continue to make bigger plays. And if our opponent deals with our bigger plays, it really does hurt. But with Honorable Thief here, we're going to be putting 2 cards from our opponent's deck into their cemetery, so you can hit the 10 if you need to. If you're not there, then you just got there a little bit faster. But being able to run this follower into something when it's evolved and just drawing a card is very useful in some instances. Alright, so next up we have Windslasher. It's a 2-cost 2/2 and it has Rush, but when it comes into play, you look at the top 2 cards of your deck. You may put a heroic card from among them into your EX area. You put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. Alright, so each heroic card that they show here is just straight value. So being able to just be a 2-cost 2/2 that can come in and then put the top 2 cards, probably heroic since your deck is going to be super tribal with all these new cards. You can put it into your EX area so you don't have to add a card to your hand to really hurt you for Valiant Fencer when you ever want to go for it. Alright, and next up we have Selfless Noble. So he's a 7-cost 7/6. When he comes into play, select the enemy fall on the field and destroy it, and then you discard your hand and you draw 3 cards. So the Noble is a bronze card and it is very interesting. So if you're trying to run a very budget friendly version of Spartacus, I think this is very something that you can look into, because when you get into the late game, you're playing super defensive. And of course the deck already kind of really runs the Notora package, which already kind of just like mills you through your deck, and while you're drawing a card, discarding a card, you're pitching your Trail of Lights. Just being able to select the enemy fall on the field, because sometimes you just get to the games where your opponent's only able to play 1 card. So being able to just destroy 1 card on the field and then getting rid of your hand to draw 3. Hopefully you're not getting rid of your Spartacus, because come on, let's be a little bit smarter, guys. But being able to discard your hand and then drawing 3 cards really does help you dig through your deck some more. Alrighty, and next up we have Weapons Hawker. So she's a 1-cost 1/1. At the start of your end phase, if there is a merchant follower on your field with a different name than this card, deal 2 damage to each enemy leader. But when she comes into play, you select another Swordcraft follower on your field and you give a +1 attack and a sail. Alright, so this is the full Weapons Hawker crew. So not only are you going to be able to play your legendary, that also just naturally gets out the other Hawker that's able to deal 3 damage, which is initially going to do 5 damage since you got it off the fanfare. When you do evolve, you can get this follower and put it onto the field. At the end phase, you're going to deal 2 damage to the enemy leader, and you can give the Hawker the +1 attack and a sail since it is evolved, so it's going to be a bigger follower with Rush and a sail, and you can swing it into something. Alrighty, and lastly, we have Pompous Summon. So it's a 1-cost spell. You can choose one of the following. You can either 1, draw a card, or 2, if there is a Princess follower on your field, search your deck for a Swordcraft follower, reveal it and add it to your hand, then shuffle your deck. Alright, so this is not bad for 1. You can choose to just draw a card if you need to, or if you're running a Princess deck, you can go ahead and search for a Swordcraft follower or anything. It just doesn't matter. As long as it's a Swordcraft follower, you can search it for 1, which is very nice. You just have to have the requirement to have a Princess on your field, which isn't too crazy if you're going to be running the Princess deck. Alright, so for set 10, of course, we're going to be getting our leaders for our box toppers, and if you are a Swordcraft enjoyer, then there's a high chance you might be eating very well here. So you have a chance to get Octress, Melina, or Momo out of your box toppers if you really want them. That's the little thing that they're doing for set 10. And if you really want to, you can definitely trade around. I know the other 2 cards, the Melina and the Momo, were cards that were supposed to come out in older sets, but they didn't come out, and now they're finally here in set 10. You have a chance to pull them if you want them. And I'm personally liking that they're doing this, because if you really enjoyed and you want to really rock out your full Princess deck, you can, have the Melina as your leader, and you don't have to rock the set 2 card. I can't remember what her name was. I think it was Aurelia. Aurelia was the set 2 Princess card that you could have had as your leader. And I don't remember exactly when these cards came out, the Melina and the Momo, but I know when they came out for us, we didn't have the chance to pull them or a chance to really get them. So having the chance to receive them now is very nice. And of course, lastly, we have our UR for the set for Swordcraft. We have the Uluhan, just the regular unevolved side, which is very nice. It looks very good. I hope if you're looking forward to pulling this card or getting it, I hope you acquire it. I like how generic it is, so I think this card is going to be very good. And alright, soldiers, that is the end of all the card reveals for Swordcraft. I'm very excited for everything they presented us here with set 10. It looks like Sword is eating very nicely. I mean, I might be a little biased here because, the heroic stuff, and I'm very excited to update my heroic deck and follow the new stuff in there, so, we can finally stop playing a set 3 deck that just really feels really slow. But outside of that, I'm really excited for this set 10 Swordcraft. But alrighty soldiers, that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I missed and I loved all of you. I am just debating if there's going to be a double feature here for today's video. I don't know if I'm going to release 2 videos today since I missed yesterday because I really wanted to post all week. But if there's going to be 2 videos today, look out for the other one today. And if not, then I definitely will be making a Saturday video. Alright soldiers, make sure you're safe whenever you do tonight and safe whatever you do for the rest of the year. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Yeah. TRINN. Just to get you away. What I got to do, what I got to do.